Phrenzy is officially over, but with its ending has come a lot of people being upset. I don't think it's entirely unfounded, but some people are very much overreacting. Now, it was 100% a rough ride during Phrenzy, as there were quite a lot of changes during it and we had a very buggy launch. But, in the end, the adjustments made Phrenzy better by a lot and set a very good foundation for the next one. However, I won't be talking about the buggy launch, skins, swords rework, kill effects, and maps. I'm just going to focus on the game mode, scoring system, and thresholds, as that's what people are mostly upset about. First thing I want to talk about is the actual decoy to play game mode itself, as this was a pretty big point of tension. For the first few days, people didn't have any real issues with it since we had all just begun Phrenzy, so it was all pretty new still and hard to make a judgment call already. But as time went on, people became more and more critical of the game mode. Most people were mad about how luck-based this Phrenzy felt. Your own skill didn't feel very important when it came to getting a good score, which I think is a fair complaint because this Phrenzy really did more rely on how good the people you were up against were. Good scores required usually an absolute sweep, 0 deaths and an absurd amount of kills, something you're just not gonna get at any team has somebody even equal to your skill level. I think another big issue with the game mode has to do more of just the player base and not the actual game mode though. I'm willing to bet a good chunk of the fighting player base are one-tricks. They have only one character they're truly good at. So when you throw somebody who plays nothing but, let's say, Katana onto a class like Medkit, I can see why you'd get stressed out while playing the game mode. Okay, but with all the problems mentioned, was it at least fun? Well, for me it was. Not quite as fun as Mixed Up Madness personally, but I still really enjoyed it. My biggest issue was some rounds were quite draining to play. Main culprits being Skateboard, Rocket, Slingshot, Hyper Laser, Medkit, and Boombox. Medkit and Boombox especially sucks because the 2x damage buff of supports made their rounds very annoying to play. Time to kill in Boombox rounds was absurdly low and you would just be getting constantly pushed around, while Medkit games were pretty slow until you get hit by a direct rejuvenation ring that nukes all of your health. But there were also a good amount of rounds that I really enjoyed playing throughout the whole thing. Katana, Banhammer, Scythe, Subspace, and Vine Staff were all pretty fun rounds, honestly. Now, just reading the fun list, you'd maybe assume that I'm biased, since these sound like the classes that are good for getting high scores with, and you aren't wrong. The classes I listed as being enjoyable are mostly good for getting high scores, but I don't think that's why I enjoyed them, because my top 3 fighters by the end were Medkit, Katana, and Scythe. Despite being my 3rd best fighter, I still didn't enjoy Medkit. But the game mode is admittedly a small part of the issues people had with the Phrenzy. The brunt of the issues people had with the Phrenzy came from its scoring system and the rough ride it had, so I say we should probably take a look at that then. Decoy to play scoring system actually sounded really good on paper. Your top 3 fighter scores are combined into one total score to determine your final score. A system that rewards players with skill rather than the insane grind that was Mixed Up Madness. But when it came to execution, I think it's fair to say that this wasn't the best choice. As mentioned previously, the game mode itself wasn't very skill-based, but rather more luck-based. That alone is a pretty big issue, since not only did it make getting high scores inconsistent, but to me also at least less rewarding. Like, sure, I got a new high score, but everybody in the server is pretty low level when I'm nearing level 300. The scoring system, combined with how unbalanced the game mode was, led to the best way of getting points being pub stomping. However, I still do think that overall, this was a much better scoring system than Mix Up Madness, as that was an incredibly heavy grind. It's just that this system didn't really mesh well with the percentage thresholds. However, to say that there wasn't anything tried to fix the scoring system would be wrong. Over time, Aiden made it easier to get points. Good. Aiden only used the thresholds from the middle of the Phrenzy and not the end, so that way people knew how much they needed to grind for each reward. Good. And most importantly, Aiden added total Phrenzy points, meaning every match win or loss would contribute to something. Now I can't speak to how effective it was when it came to motivating players, as if you look at the footage I have, you can see I didn't play much after it was added. I was already in the 1% threshold by the time it got added, so I didn't feel much of a need. But personally, I think making a more accessible way to get rewards is a great thing for Phrenzy, regardless of motivation. I think Phrenzy is at its best when there are rewards accessible for casual players, but still keeping some rewards to those who are better at the game or those who want to grind more. Which is pretty much what we got at the end. People with 10k points are given a new sword skin, and people with 25k points are given the Daybreaker title along with its kill effect. And somehow the response to this was seemingly negative. Somehow, after a pretty flawed scoring system resulting in a lot of people just not being able to come close to the 1% threshold, even for the middle of Phrenzy, trying to remedy that by giving more people the 1% kill effect is a bad thing, apparently. I'm not going to pretend like I understand that for even a second. The only thing I can understand being upset over was the fact this wasn't decided sooner, as I'm sure there are some people who wished that they knew at 25k points would grant the kill effect, but even then, is it a big deal? Not at all. Not even close. The kill effect was never designed to be this super exclusive thing just for the 1% of players who got there. It was always the plan to put it inside the Zuka shop whenever that gets finished. If you seriously think your kill effect is being devalued, then I'm interested to see how you react to everybody being able to purchase it. And hey, if you just can't help yourself but be upset over this, then genuinely, keep it to yourself. Being an ass to the devs, especially Aiden, isn't going to do anything good for you. Keep it to yourself, keep it to your respectful. I think that's something that should be said for every situation, because this community really doesn't know how to treat its devs nice. And speaking of that, that's something I'd actually like to apologize for myself. I was admittedly being an ass in this community post I made, which definitely didn't help with how terribly Phrenzy was going, and I feel pretty bad about that. And I think that's where I want to end things. Overall, saying that this Phrenzy was a rough experience would admittedly be an understatement, but I think it's important to look on the bright side of things. A lot of the things introduced when it came to this Phrenzy score were good. Total Phrenzy scores allow for a more casual way to get rewards, while keeping percentage thresholds for those who are better at the game and want to grind more. I honestly do look forward to the next Phrenzy, since it does seem pretty promising with everything introduced. But we've got a festival in August, so I'd say you should keep your eyes on that for now. And that's all I've got to say. Keep your comments about Phrenzy respectful, be nice to the devs, and I'll see you later.